But when they do it, they end up either killing.
Yeah, because it's actually
they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's not that easy. It's an art. Yeah.
It's like being what's thing, your foreskin taken off or whatever.
Yeah. This is, as a guy, when you read it, it hurts.
So they don't know, they don't have the skills to necessarily do that, and they try it with a certain number of
80 boys, and 77 of them died. 3 of them got paralyzed.
And then they give up on that.
And they give up on that one. And this regime is basically hell. It's the thing about it, it's extremely stratified, where if you are superior to you could pretty much do anything you want. So there's one case where this guy did not rise up to speak with the superior, and he got executed. When, let's say, Yang came out in his entourage, if you looked at his entourage, you get executed. And for example, the lowest grade official managed 25 people, and he gets to sit on the moving chair, but carried by 4 people. Hong gets carried around in a 64 people chair when he goes out. And think about it, like within the context, let's say the Qing emperor, on average days it's 16 guys. 64 is only when he's dead, and his coffin is carried by 64. You can think that Hong then, it was basically in his own funeral every day with 64.
I mean, it seems like the irony of this is that, that it's obviously that it's not, it's not Christian, but it's extreme Confucianism in some regard, in that you don't have 16 people carrying around, you have 64. You don't have 36 concubines, you have 2,000 or 88. I mean, they've taken what the emperor was doing, it seems like, aside from the eunuchs, which they can't seem to master, and just multiplied that and made it some sort of extreme version of that.
Extreme, like, cult. Yeah. It's in some sense, the more fair and share a regime is, the worse, right? It's because then all the resources go into the storage, and then the top guys can just help themselves. He built his own palace, twice the size of the Forbidden City. He only had 3 towns. Look at how big the rest of China is. And then he's just a really weird guy. He put wild animals in. So he had his own safari, and he only ate cold stuff, and cold stuff, and also he likes to. That's not very Chinese at all, and he likes to he likes to eat scorpions. This is a very weird guy. His level of Chinese. Actually, if you read any of his poetry, you know why he didn't pass any of them. Because actually, you look at the Qing Dynasty, like let's say for example, the Empress Dowager, she's called Concubine Yi, so it's a very beautiful name, right? Or like the Xinjiang Turkic lady that was taken by Qianlong is like Concubine Yu, Ru, right? Xiang, which means smells good. His vocab was so limited, he basically named all of them, but he actually just numbered them. So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So like big data, like data management, digital management of women. And he also has this extreme thing where he needs absolute obedience. He wrote he wrote a manual for how to serve him. All you ladies. For example, he has, and one of the best is actually the 10 deserve to be beaten. So you do any of these 10, you deserve to be beaten. Looking left and right, looking above the shoulder of your husband. So you're not supposed to look at his face. Okay? Talking really loudly, not listening to him. When asking how he's doing, you don't have the right attitude. When your voice is not smooth and soft. So 10. I was like, actually, so it's actually, in modern day life, everybody in Hong Kong will be slapped, right? Yeah. So like the 10 deserve to be beaten. And then he also say things like, stop, like poetry, like, you need to speak softly. Do not bark around me. So yeah, it's fascinating. And
he needed to be hugged more as a child.
Yeah. Well, I think in some sense he really disappointed his family, right? And then another thing is, it's like for example, Yang's bed was 500 square feet with water around him. Yeah, with water around, and where it either it's cooling effect of the bed or like or warming. So extreme and like extreme luxury, extreme exploitation, but at the same time speaking in God's name.
Did they follow principles of feng shui?
I'm sure they do somehow, and so so they got to Nanjing. They started they started fighting, and then so the Qing Dynasty obviously had to want to put them down. So what they did was they got the banners and the green camp, and they built two camps. One is called the Jiangbei camp, and the one's Jiangnan camp, which is the north of the Yangtze River camp, south of the Yangtze River camp, and basically got completely demolished by Yang's military mastermind, and because one American missionary actually went to the camps and said, "This is amazing. There's gambling. There's a prostitute corner. There's like opium dens within the camps." So you could probably imagine the level of how good they were in fighting. And also, what's interesting, in the beginning of the Taiping regime, everybody in Europe were very excited. So they actually bought quite a lot of weapons from the Europeans. So they were technologically relatively superior to the Qing at that point. And
Europeans were excited because
these are Christians. They're Christians. They believe in God. And actually, there was a huge movement in Britain where they thought, oh my gosh, God is really working in China. And there's going to be 400 million more Christians thanks to Taiping. And they actually raised 40,000 pounds to print New Testament for the Taiping. And they really helped, in some sense, they really helped Taiping. And the Taiping, unlike the Qing Dynasty at that point in the 1850s, where they were very xenophobic, which is the reason why, like the last talk I had, why they the Second Opium War fighting, the Taiping in some sense were actually quite chill. It's like they call Europeans, like the British, the French, and the Americans, ocean brothers. Ocean means foreigner, because you guys all came from boats. So Yang so ocean man. You'll be an ocean man because you came from the ocean. So so they call them the ocean brothers, Yang Xiongdi. And sort of relationship in the beginning was good. Actually, even there was one case, one of the Qing generals saw like a British ship that sailed past his jurisdiction, and actually it's the British actually sending armory to the Taiping, but there's nothing that he could do because he can't fight the British. So they destroyed the Jiangnan Jianbei Daiying, the camps, and so Yang's ambition really rose. From 1848, the first time God came to him, till his death in 1856, we will get in now, God came down to him 28 times. So God was very busy in those 8 years. I don't think God even appeared, it came down that often in the Old Testament. And every single time God would possess him, it's because he had some kind of dispute with Hong. So that's his way of getting ahead of Hong, even though he was his boss when he's not possessed. But once he's possessed, he is his father, right? So it was one time he wanted to punish Hong. Hong actually beat up one of his wives pretty badly. And he actually said, what you did was wrong. Like in God's name, what you did was wrong. I'm gonna spank you. So actually, Hong actually lied down and took his pants off. Then everybody tried to stop them. And it was like, no, don't do that. And so he stopped. Okay, now that you're willing to be punished, I'm not gonna punish you. So this is this is just basically one big, crazy case of history. Yeah.
Convert his followers?
He did. Well, he's Charlemagne, right? So either you die, right, or you become a Taiping Christian, right?
Right.
And so at this point,
so they were baptized, or how did that work exactly? I mean,
well, everybody would have to be Christian. Right. They were all, and actually, And I think a lot of people would have to die too today. It's if you fail to go to church on Saturday, execution. Right. Yeah. You don't sing loud enough, execution. Right. If you look at a woman, execution. Right. So this is a very bizarre episode.
It seems like he laid down laws. There weren't necessarily biblical laws or laws to follow in terms of commandments or what have you.
Yeah. Well, they had it. It's kind of like the Ten Commandments.
Right.
But it really took
his
it.
Commandments.
Yeah, his commandments. But it took it to like the extreme. Like for example, like so the Acts of the Apostles talks about everybody shared shared the resources.
Right.
So it's really like an extreme form of utopia, you'd say, that becomes a hell. And so, but the main thing is, at this point, he wanted to take over take over Hong. Yang wants to take over Hong, because he was actually the main guy, doing all the government departments were actually in the Eastern Qing mansion, in the Eastern mansion. And actually, what's interesting, and it's interesting because actually from the Qing Dynasty, there were actually reports of saying, actually, there's no Hong guy. He is just imaginary. It's just Yang. So Yang did all the work, and he realized, he should be the king. And so God came to him again. He said to Hong, who has the most, who did the most work in this? And Hong said, the East King did. Does he deserve to be Lord of 10,000 years? Because he's 9,000 at the time. He's like, yes, he does. Does his son deserve to be Lord of 10,000 years? Also. Forced him, right? And so when that happened, Hong was like, what am I going to do? So what he did was this. He wanted to get rid of Yang, right, at this point, right? So he asked Wei, who was fighting in the West, to come back to, there's a term called to clean up the emperor's side, which means to kill a bad guy around the emperor. And so Wei came in, with a few thousand guys, and at night just stormed into the East Mansion and killed Yang and his whole family. But not only that, because Yang had a huge entourage.
And a 500 square foot bed or whatever.
And he had a huge, a lot of people following him, right? Yeah. So what happened was Wei was a very schemy kind of guy. For the longest time, he would really just suck up to Yang. Let me give you one example. Wei's older brother was trying to get a house, and he went into this an argument with Yang's brother-in-law, and so Yang was like, told Wei, "What are you gonna do about that, huh?" Wei then had his older brother, the 5-horse execution, to suck up to Yang. This is the kind of person that Wei was. But then he would come in and do that, and then he was like, how? And then he was basically at a really killing mode. How to kill all the guys that's part of the Yang camp. So he said, he used Hong's name and said, Hong is going to punish Wei at the palace. You all come and observe. Everybody who is part of the East King camp, come and observe. And they all did. And they rounded them all of them out and killed all of them, including the families. And so the Qing army actually suddenly saw that the river flowing out of Nanjing to be red, and started bodies floating out. So they realized that there were something must have happened. And then Shi, who was also fighting as well, he was fighting the other Qing armies, saw this happening and saw the kind of injustice there was, came in and tried to talk to Wei about it, was asking Wei, basically, yelling at him, how you can't do that. Shi actually was a great general. He pretty much, he took up Xiao's attack in Hunan and pretty much won every single war. So, and everybody liked him. Even the Qing Dynasty, the officials spoke very highly of him and him alone. And then Wei was like, so what? And so Wei was going to kill Shi as well. So Shi fled Nanjing, but he went too fast. So his family was still in Nanjing, and so Wei killed all of Shi's family. Oh, by the way, Nanjing was then they turned it in name to Tianjin. Jing means capital, right. and Nan means south. So it was, which is what is called now Nanjing, southern capital. They turned to Tianjin, which is heavenly capital. Yeah. And so Shi left, and his family got killed. So he took his guys, went into Tianjin, and killed Wei and all of his entourage. So this is called the Tianjin Shibian, as in the coup d'état of the heavenly capital. It happened in 1856, and that is really the turning point of the Taiping doing very well, expanding to because actually during the interim, once they got Nanjing, they actually got 2 generals to invade north, all the way up to Tianjin, all the way up to here. But then because they were too far and then they were too half-hearted, they actually got destroyed by the Qing cavalry from Mongolia. But here, then Shi, it's really a turning point because one of the Yang was he was actually the de facto administrator and head of state for Taiping. He was much more competent than Hong. Him and all of his guys died. So that's one thing. The other thing is then the bubble that you guys are really the son of God, and then the messenger of God, it's completely broken. So that the faith of the people was broken because you guys are just, just like any other regular killing and savagery, right? And so at that point in time, Shi was in Tianjin, and then Hong had him. Everybody was wanting him to be doing most of the administrative work. But then Hong was like, okay, I had a Yang and then a Wei. Like, I don't want a Shi. So what he did, he does like a very, very Chinese thing. He had 2 of his older brothers to be above him, and then gave a lot of the military, power to a guy called Li Xiucheng. Call him Li. So he's called Zhong Wang, as in the king of loyalty. Yeah. And so military power went to him. And then the 2 older brothers, who were pretty much practically mentally handicapped, were above him. So he also was scared that Hong might kill him. So he actually left. But as he left, he was like, whoever is willing to come with me. So he actually took away, eventually, about 200,000 men away from the Taiping, and then he went around by himself in the name of Taiping. He went all the way to Fujian and then to Sichuan, and in 1863, he knew he was losing, so he wanted to preserve his army's lives. He actually surrendered and was killed by 1,000 cuts. And I think because he surrendered with his son, 5-year-old son, I think his son was also killed by 10,000 cuts. I don't know how his boy could handle 10,000 cuts. So you look at this is really the turning point of the Taiping, because you've got the best guys leaving or died, and also the death of the faith in 1856.